In 1907, Akiba Rubinstein sacrifices 2 rooks and a queen to win this incredible game. This is one of the best rook sacrifices I've ever seen, and the game starts with his opponent playing the move d4, he plays d5, and we go into a very symmetrical looking positions with all the knights in the center and these 4 pawns staring at each other. The tension is removed after the white pawn takes on c5, we have bishop takes, a3, and the game continues. So this bishop retreats after being attacked, we give bishop to b2, and the game starts to get interesting around this point. So here, notice that this light squared bishop has just moved to d3. This bishop is going to get harassed and bullied by Rubinstein. Rubinstein decides to take this pawn, hitting the bishop, so okay, the bishop is simply going to take that pawn. Then the bishop is hit again, the bishop is forced to retreat, and here we get the move rook to d8. Now, it may not seem like their move rook to d8 is harassing the bishop, but trust me, it is. If white were to do something like castles here, there's going to be all sorts of tactics where this bishop is taking on h2, and we're looking at this pressure against this bishop and queen. And so his opponent does not like the fact that his queen and bishop are lined up, and so here his opponent moves queen to e2. So really, white in this position has wasted a lot of time moving this bishop, moving this queen. It's not so clear what they're doing in this opening, and so after the move bishop to b7 by Rubinstein and white castling, white is actually in a lot of trouble here. They have to play very accurately, otherwise they're going to get simply blown off the board. Here, Rubinstein plays the move knight to e5, and the point of this move is actually very smart. The first thing is that he's opening up his light squared bishop to get a big attack against the white king, and the other thing is that the one defender of white's king, this knight, is actually going to be removed. So after takes, one of his bad knight has been traded for this good knight, and his bishops are very active against the king. So now here, white has to be very, very careful. If white does something random, like let's just say they move the rook here, well, all of a sudden, white is in big trouble. There's rook takes d3, queen takes, bishop takes h2, and all of a sudden there's a huge attack against white's king. So the tactic is basically that you deflect white's queen away from the g4 square. So after white takes this rook, then you can try to sacrifice the bishop against the king. King takes, the knight gets in, the queen is going to get in. Sorry for the bad arrows. The queen's going to get in, and this king is going to get hunted down. It's not completely lost for white here, but the king is in lots of danger, and black is certainly better. So even though it's not dead lost, white here is worrying quite a bit about all these tactics. So instead of making a random rook move, they play the natural looking move f4. So even though this makes a lot of sense from the human standpoint, okay, you're stopping any sacrifices, it's quite double-edged. So after the bishop retreats, white plays the move e4, and it looks like white's actually doing okay. They're stopping these bishops from being too powerful, and it seems like it's making sense. But Rubinstein does not allow this whatsoever. These pawns are actually quite soft, and he takes full advantage. So first we have rook to c8. The point of this move is to bring the only piece that's not doing anything in the position to make it more active. Now both these rooks are very nice looking down the file. So here we have e5 and bishop to b6 check. So the king is forced to move away. And here Rubinstein starts to unleash brilliant moves. We have knight to g4. So the point of this move is that if the queen takes here, then the rook is going to take this light squared bishop, and this trade is good for black because the rook might be able to go to d2, attacking the bishop and teaming up with this bishop and rook to hit the g2 pawn. You could potentially take this knight on c3 with both the rooks and go into a winning endgame. There's all these things to consider, and so white obviously does not want to take this poison knight. So what does white do instead? They simply move the bishop, and they're hoping that, okay, maybe black takes, we get something like takes, and white is hoping they're okay. Here there's some tactics where the knight can take on h2, and if king takes, we have queen to h4 checkmate because the king is attacked by both the bishop and the queen. So maybe white can hope for a position like this where they're just a pawn down and they'll try to survive. If you just don't take the knight, you can maybe try to survive this. But of course, this does not happen, and Rubinstein plays more brilliant moves. So instead of simply taking this, he goes far more aggressive and plays the move queen to h4, simply trying to checkmate white immediately and setting up a very, very nasty sequence. So here white says, okay, I'm about to get checkmated. Why don't I simply play the move g3? This way, the queen is protecting this square, and everything's fine. Except everything is not fine because Rubinstein plays the move rook takes c3. This is a brilliant rook sacrifice. The idea is that, well, okay, if you take, then I'm going to simply take this bishop, the queen is going to move, and I'm going to checkmate you with my queen and my knight. So what does white do here? Well, they take the queen instead. remember that the queen is actually hanging here too. And so this rook sacrifice not only sacrifices a rook, but it also sacrifices the queen. So you can't take the rook because you get checkmated. What happens if you take the queen? If you take the queen, something even more nasty happens. Here, Rubinstein plays the move rook to d2. He sacrifices a second rook. Both rooks are hanging, and no matter what white does here, they are completely lost. Well, you might be asking why. Well, let's say they take this rook on c3 first. If they take this rook first, well, it's actually over because you can take this bishop on e4. Let's say bishop takes. If the queen decides to take this, you have checkmate with the rook, the bishop, and the knight all teaming up. So this is game over. There is no way to survive this. Okay, so you cannot take the rook on c3. What if the queen just decides to move somewhere random? Well, again, this pattern with these three pieces will checkmate the king. Okay, so what if you decide to take the knight? Well, same idea. You simply take this bishop, and now the king is unable to move because of all this pressure, and white will actually get quickly checkmated. If you decide to try to block, you're simply going to get taken. There's all these sorts of discovered checks that will actually end in checkmate. You're threatening checkmate right here, and this will be game over. What is the solution? Well, you have to take this, otherwise it's simply game over. So that's what happens in the game. We get queen takes rook. And here we have the move bishop takes bishop check. The king has no squares to move to. They're both covered by the bishops. So we have queen blocking, and instead of taking the queen, we have the move rook to h3. White resigns, and this is simply incredible. The bishop cannot take the knights because the king will be taken. That'd be an interesting way to end the game. If the queen takes the bishop, then again, rook takes here is simply checkmate. The knight protects the rook. The bishop is stopping any squares the king can run to. And so really white simply has no moves here. If they simply move a random rook, well, you can simply take this pawn with check, and it's actually checkmate because the queen cannot take since it's pinned to the king. The king cannot move because the bishop covers his square, and it is game over. This is Rubinstein's Immortal game. I hope you liked it as much as I did, and subscribe for more videos like this one.